Harley Davidson just shattered expectations, stepping from roaring bikes into the car market with a move no one saw coming. This isn't just news, it's a cultural earthquake. Watch until the end, because the last twist separates those who stay ahead from those left scrambling behind. What's happening? Harley Davidson did not just rev an engine, they dropped a bomb that shook the entire car market. For more than a century, the Harley badge meant one thing: a thunderous motorcycle rumbling across highways, the soundtrack of freedom itself. No one thought that same logo would one day be stamped onto the grille of a four-wheeled machine, yet in a single announcement, Harley tore down that wall and declared its intent to fight inside the car market. The news landed like an explosion, sending shockwaves through dealerships, rival automakers, and even Harley's most loyal fans. The contrast was stark. For decades, Harley embodied rebellion on two wheels, while cars, especially electric cars, were painted as the tame, utilitarian choice of commuters. But the age of oil is fading, and a new generation has little patience for nostalgia soaked in gasoline. Young buyers want clean power, digital dashboards, and brands that dare to look forward. Harley decided it could no longer afford to live only in the past. For enthusiasts, the move felt like either a betrayal or a revelation. Some mourned the loss of raw exhaust thunder, while others saw the chance for Harley to roar again, this time in silence. The message was clear. The future is electric, and Harley wanted to own a piece of it. But the shock only deepened when Harley revealed a model name no one expected: the Hero XTREME 125R. Reveal! The world blinked when Harley's first electric car carried a name long tied to a motorcycle legend: the Hero XTREME 125R. It was as if history itself had been repurposed. The choice of branding stunned both motorcycle insiders and automotive veterans. Why would Harley borrow a name associated with a commuter bike and slap it on a bold electric crossover? The answer was simple: disruption. The Hero XTREME 125R car embodied a deliberate collision between heritage and reinvention. Harley's engineers sculpted a body that blended cruiser muscle with futuristic EV geometry. Broad shoulders, sharp edges, and a nose that carried echoes of a bike's fairing gave the vehicle a stance that seemed to ride rather than drive. Critics whispered that Harley had lost its way, but admirers argued the company had finally found a bridge between its past and its future. Technology made the shock real. Early specifications hinted at smooth torque delivery that pushed the car from 0 to 60 in seconds, paired with a range that rivaled mid-tier electric sedans, costing twice as much. For the first time, Harley was not merely selling an image, it was selling performance that made sense in city traffic and on open highways alike. And once the tarp came off, the auto industry saw something even stranger. Harley's car looked like no car before it. If you're hooked by what you've seen so far, don't just watch, get involved. Hit that like button if you think Harley's move could shake the entire industry, and drop a comment with your take. Style meets identity. This was not just a car, it was Harley's soul stitched into steel. From the first glance, the design screamed tradition even as it whispered innovation. Teardrop curves along the flanks recalled Harley fuel tanks, while the front carried LED bar lights styled to resemble motorcycle handlebars glowing at dusk. Inside, seat stitching echoed the leather saddles of vintage cruisers. Every line, every detail seemed to insist, you may be driving, but you are still riding with Harley. For the faithful, this design offered a shock of recognition. They saw themselves on four wheels without feeling they had betrayed the tribe. The Harley identity, once chained to exhaust pipes and chrome, now sat confidently in an electric chassis. To many buyers, this was liberation. They could keep the myth alive without paying the price at the pump. Rivals watched nervously. Tesla had long believed sleek minimalism defined the EV market. Mercedes EQ bet on futuristic luxury. Yet Harley proved that emotion, not specifications, could move customers. It was not the 0 to 60 number that mattered, it was the feeling of belonging to something larger. In that moment, Harley forced the industry to confront a simple truth. Cars sell dreams, not data. But before fans could take a victory lap, politics roared in to spoil the ride. Keep your ride ready for anything with trusted gear and accessories built for performance and reliability. Check the description for our full list of recommended tools, parts, and rider essentials. The political firestorm. When lawmakers smelled disruption, they pulled out their pens like weapons. Almost overnight, committees called emergency hearings to study Harley's entry into the EV car market. Could a company born of motorcycles really comply with decades of automobile regulation? Safety boards demanded fresh crash tests, while environmental agencies wondered if Harley should qualify for EV subsidies or be treated as a special case. The arrival of the Hero XTREME 125R created a bureaucratic puzzle wrapped in a cultural battle. Unions raised alarms as well. If Harley moved deeper into cars, what would it mean for Detroit workers already fighting to preserve their livelihoods in the EV transition? Rumors swirled of job losses in legacy plants, while Harley promised retraining programs and domestic production. The tension spilled into streets where some workers carried signs praising innovation, while others shouted warnings about betrayal. Markets trembled. Investors saw opportunity, but analysts cautioned that tariffs or restrictions could strangle Harley's bold gamble. Legislators floated ideas from stricter safety certifications to special import duties. It was as if the political system itself was unsure whether to embrace Harley's audacity or to cage it before it spread. And while Washington bickered, Harley was already plotting its next battlefield, the heart of Detroit itself. Detroit on defense. Ford and General Motors woke up to find a biker gang raiding their turf. For decades, Detroit was the home of automotive dominance, the fortress that set the tone for what Americans drove. But Harley Davidson's sudden leap into the electric car market cracked that fortress wall wide open. Overnight, the spotlight shifted. Headlines that usually went to Ford's new truck or GM's latest SUV were stolen by a brand better known for roaring down Route 66 on two wheels. Harley's entry was more than a product launch. It was a cultural coup. Pre-orders for the Hero XTREME 125R surged past expectations, and waiting lists stretched into months. Consumers who once dismissed electric cars as soulless now talked about Harley's machine as if it were rebellion reborn. That attention forced Detroit executives into frantic meetings. The numbers were not just about sales, they were about perception. If buyers believed Harley was cooler, bolder, and more authentic, then decades of corporate branding collapsed overnight. Detroit strategists scrambled. Should they slash prices? Should they rush flashy concept EVs? Every option felt like a reaction rather than a plan. Harley had seized momentum, and Detroit was left defending ground it thought was secure. But Harley was not going it alone. An unlikely ally was about to enter the fray. The Unlikely Alliance. In a move no one predicted, Harley shook hands with a rival and rewrote the rules of war. Rather than trying to fight every battle solo, Harley announced a partnership with a major automaker that had once viewed them as little more than a lifestyle brand. Together, they unveiled a shared platform for batteries and electric architecture, a decision that doubled production capacity overnight. The alliance stunned analysts. For decades, Harley cultivated an image of independence. Rebels on the open road, beholden to no one. Now it was forging bonds with a corporate giant. Competitors mocked it as desperation, but Wall Street saw something sharper. Production costs could be cut by billions, and Harley would gain immediate access to established distribution channels. In exchange, the partner brand gained Harley's cultural edge and styling magic, the one thing spreadsheets could never manufacture. The metaphor on the streets was irresistible. Two old warriors who had once fought across the battlefield now forming a supergroup, louder together than they had ever been apart. It was part strategy, part theater, and wholly disruptive. And while corporations clinked glasses, Harley's workers took to the streets with demands. The workers' revolt. The factory floor echoed not with machines, but with chants. Harley's alliance promised growth and profit, but to workers it raised a dangerous question. Would Harley jobs remain Harley jobs, or would they vanish into corporate mergers? Unions wasted no time. Leaders marched into boardrooms demanding written guarantees that the new EV lines would be built by Harley hands on Harley soil. Retraining programs were rolled out and entire factories were retooled for electric production. The process was expensive, but it gave workers a sense of pride. Many who had feared layoffs during the EV transition now celebrated the chance to weld, bolt, and wire the first Harley car. For blue-collar workers, this was not just about wages. It was about being part of a cultural moment, building history with their own hands. Union halls buzzed with fiery speeches comparing Harley's EV gamble to the New Deal era of industrial transformation. Workers spoke of dignity, not just paychecks, and families rallied outside plants with homemade signs. The mood was electric. This was more than labor. It was legacy, written in steel and sweat. The gamble paid off. Job numbers rose by double digits, morale climbed, and the community around Harley's plants pulsed with new energy. For the first time in years, workers felt they were not victims of globalization, but leaders in the next great chapter of American industry. But even as workers cheered, Wall Street whispered a prophecy that stunned the world. The market frenzy. Overnight, Harley was not valued as a bike maker. It was crowned a future car king. Investors flooded in, betting that Harley's bold entry into electric cars would reshape the market entirely. Within days, Harley's stock price soared by more than 30%, erasing years of sluggish performance and placing the brand at the center of financial chatter. Analysts went further. Some claimed Harley was now more valuable as an electric disruptor than as the century-old motorcycle icon it had always been. Reports circulated that Harley could rival established automakers in market capitalization if momentum continued. For old-school fans, this felt surreal. To them, Harley was a culture, a sound, a brotherhood, not a ticker symbol on Wall Street. Yet for investors, the silent electric car had become a unicorn, a mythical beast blending heritage and future. Financial television anchors ran breathless coverage, comparing Harley's surge to the dot-com boom of 2 decades earlier. Small investors piled in through trading apps, convinced they were witnessing history. Yet whispers of overvaluation spread, warning that meteoric rises often end in spectacular crashes. Harley's stock had become pure theater. The cultural clash was palpable. Writers in leather jackets scoffed at hedge funds, declaring Harley a tech play, while investors dismissed nostalgia as dead weight. But one truth was inescapable. Harley had captured lightning, and the market was desperate to bottle it. But just as money flooded in, foreign markets struck back with a vengeance. Europe's AFTERSHOCK. In Brussels, Harley's EV was not seen as a car, it was seen as a storm. European automakers, already struggling to match Tesla's momentum, now faced a fresh gale from across the Atlantic. Harley Davidson's Hero XTREME 125R arrived not as a novelty, but as a full-force tempest. The familiar Harley badge gave it instant credibility with consumers, and its pricing rattled markets used to premium electric cars costing twice as much. The panic spread quickly. Executives from Volkswagen, Renault, and Peugeot demanded urgent talks with regulators. Within weeks, European politicians floated a proposal for a 20% import duty on Harley's car, a measure meant to shield local producers from being swept away. Dealers worried that tariffs would inflate prices, but others feared that without protection, Harley would capture an outsized share of the growing EV market. On the streets of Berlin and Paris, consumers debated fiercely. Some praised Harley for bringing excitement back to the EV market, while others warned that foreign dominance would crush local jobs. What began as trade policy soon felt personal, with citizens questioning whether Europe could defend its industrial heritage. Supply chains trembled. European battery suppliers and parts makers faced pressure to cut costs or risk losing contracts to Harley's expanding global network. Suddenly, Harley's car was not just a consumer product, it was a bargaining chip in trade negotiations, a symbol of transatlantic rivalry in the new electric age. And across the Pacific, Asia's giants prepared their own thunder. Asia's retaliation. When Honda's engineers saw Harley's reveal, they knew they had been ambushed. The Hero XTREME 125R's fusion of iconic style and modern EV technology had caught them off guard, forcing an immediate strategic shift. Honda and Yamaha, proud custodians of motorcycling heritage and significant players in Asia's car sector, realized they could not afford to trail. Their legacy pride was suddenly at stake. Budgets were reallocated overnight. Research and development funds that had been spread across gradual projects were funneled into emergency EV programs. Concept cars once scheduled for 2028 were rushed forward, with executives demanding prototypes in months, not years. The sense of urgency was palpable. Engineers described the atmosphere as a storm front closing in, frantic, charged, unpredictable. Suppliers across Asia felt the shock immediately. Orders for prototype batteries and lightweight alloys surged, overwhelming smaller factories. Executives warned of burnout as schedules compressed and budgets ballooned. Harley's bold strike had not only shaken boardrooms, it had ignited a regional scramble that stretched every resource to its breaking point. Culturally, the challenge cut deep. Japan's automotive titans had long prided themselves on efficiency, reliability, and incremental innovation. Harley's move mocked that philosophy by leaping ahead with something brash and emotional. The metaphor spread quickly. Rivals scrambling to match a tune Harley had already played loudly on the world stage, but governments were not just watching. They were ready to slam on the brakes. The red tape storm. Regulators drew their lines in the sand, and Harley's car hit the wall. While fans and investors celebrated, safety officials sounded alarms. The Hero XTREME 125R's styling, with its unconventional lighting and bold motorcycle-inspired front, triggered questions about pedestrian visibility and crash dynamics. Committees called for stricter crash tests, and lawmakers argued that Harley's design bent rules too far. The debate soon raged across ministries. Should Harley's car be classified under traditional automobile standards, or should new categories be written for unconventional EVs? Pedestrian safety became a rallying cry, with consumer watchdogs warning of potential hazards. Certification bottlenecks followed, delaying shipments and causing frustration for customers already on waiting lists. Customers caught in the backlog vented their anger online. Forums filled with frustrated posts from early buyers who had placed deposits months earlier. Families planning to make the Harley their first EV felt stranded, their excitement turning into resentment. Bureaucracy was no longer abstract, it was personal and deeply disruptive. The clash symbolized the eternal struggle between innovation and bureaucracy. Harley had pushed boundaries, but bureaucracy demanded caution. Investors saw delays, fans saw red tape, and competitors quietly celebrated the slowdown. Every day of uncertainty meant breathing space for rivals scrambling to catch up. The storm of regulation, unlike market hype, could not be swayed by style or passion. And while Harley wrestled with red tape, a scrappy newcomer mocked the legend outright. The cultural counterpunch. A startup called Soul Rider stole Harley's thunder by turning rebellion into parody. With a little fanfare, the company launched a retro-styled EV sedan marketed as the People's Harley. Its advertising leaned into irony, showing leather jackets draped across charging cables and slogans that mocked Harley's myth while inviting buyers to join a cheaper revolution. To the industry's shock, sales surged in key markets. Younger buyers who admired Harley's cultural weight but balked at its price tag flocked to Soul Rider. In cities across Europe and Asia, orders piled up. For some, it felt like rebellion repackaged for a new generation. Less leather and noise, more irony and accessibility. Soul Rider's marketing leaned heavily on satire. Billboards showed riders plugging in their cars with captions mocking Harley's old slogans. The irony resonated with younger audiences who valued wit over tradition. What began as playful parody soon hardened into cultural defiance, proving style could challenge even Harley's mighty legacy. Harley's own fans grew divided. Some saw Soul Rider as an insult to the brand's legacy, while others admitted the newcomer captured the same emotional spark at a fraction of the cost. Cultural warfare erupted online, with forums debating authenticity versus adaptation. Heritage and mimicry collided, and for the first time, Harley faced a rival not just in engineering or price, but in symbolism. The market was no longer about horsepower or range, it was about identity itself. But even this battle was just the beginning. The real earthquake was global economics itself, supply chains and turmoil. Harley's car did not just consume batteries, it devoured the global supply chain. The moment the Hero XTREME 125R rolled into showrooms, the demand for lithium, cobalt, and nickel surged. Within weeks, the prices of key battery materials spiked by nearly 25%, sending tremors through markets from Chile to Congo. For suppliers already stretched thin, Harley's sudden appetite became the final straw. Contracts were renegotiated, bidding wars erupted, and some smaller firms folded into larger conglomerates simply to survive. The industry began to consolidate at breathtaking speed. Battery giants swallowed up competitors to secure leverage, while automakers scrambled to lock in long-term agreements. Harley had become the unexpected catalyst in this consolidation wave. Analysts described it as a rock concert that emptied every amplifier in town. One brand had flipped the switch, and suddenly the entire grid was overloaded. Even local economies felt the squeeze. Small manufacturers from South Korea to Poland reported sudden shortages of raw inputs, forcing temporary shutdowns. What once seemed like distant commodity speculation now hit factory floors, with workers idled and managers scrambling. Harley's appetite revealed how fragile the global supply chain truly was. For governments, the implications were serious. Nations rich in battery minerals gained new geopolitical clout, while others feared shortages that could stall their EV goals. The Hero XTREME 125R was no longer just a car. It was a global economic trigger, forcing a new era of supply chain politics. And in India, Harley's bombshell triggered a twist no analyst predicted. The Hero irony. In India, Hero MotoCorp's XTREME 125R suddenly felt like a prophecy fulfilled. While Harley had borrowed the name for its electric car, Indian consumers flocked to the original motorcycle in droves. Sales of the real Hero XTREME 125R surged by more than 50% in a matter of months, turning it into one of the hottest two-wheelers on the market. The irony was delicious. Harley's branding gamble had unintentionally supercharged demand for a rival's product. On social media, Indian riders proudly declared that their bike had beaten Harley at its own game. For many, it became a symbol of national pride, the local machine that captured global attention thanks to a twist of fate. The streets reflected the surge. Dealerships in Delhi and Mumbai reported lines stretching around corners, with younger buyers eager to claim their piece of the story. For them, owning a Hero XTREME 125R was not just transportation, it was participation in a global drama sparked by Harley's unexpected gamble. Hero capitalized on the momentum. New trims and variants were accelerated, and export plans were dusted off to push the motorcycle into international markets. Investors cheered, and the company's leadership credited Harley's car with creating free advertising worth millions. The echo of Harley's thunder had resonated across borders, but in India it translated into a sales boom for a competitor. And governments, sensing opportunity, raced to rewrite the EV playbook. Political frenzy. When lawmakers saw tax revenue on the horizon, they flooded the streets with incentives. In capitals across the globe, governments rushed to design new policies around the Harley effect. Subsidies poured into commuter EVs that promised mass adoption, while luxury models like Harley's were targeted with heavier taxes. The split created a divide. Everyday buyers cheered affordable incentives, while premium customers complained they were being penalized for wanting style and performance. The result was chaos. In some markets, overnight shifts in policy redirected millions of dollars in consumer demand. Dealerships that had been optimistic one week were panicking the next, unsure which vehicles would qualify for subsidies or face sudden tariffs. EV markets fragmented by geography and by class, turning what was once a unified push for electrification into a patchwork of competing rules. Beyond the economics, citizens felt the frenzy in their daily lives. Commuters debated in cafes whether subsidies would make the next car affordable, while luxury buyers fumed at new surcharges. The conversation shifted from highways to households, turning Harley's gamble into a dinner table argument about fairness and future mobility. The political frenzy revealed deeper truths. Electric vehicles were no longer just about technology. They were about tax codes, voter bases, and economic identity. Harley had ignited a political firestorm that no lobbyist could fully control. Incentives and penalties became weapons in a new kind of electoral battlefield, with automakers caught in the crossfire. But in the end, Harley's move was not about cars at all. It was about something bigger. You've seen how far this story goes, and trust me, the next twist will be even bigger. If you don't want to be left behind when the next bombshell drops, hit subscribe right now.